Alright, we are live here on this Wednesday evening at 6:05 on the East Coast. Thank you all for joining me. You're tuning in right now. This is Nate Millett, your host from DigiFX, and we are looking at a new level tonight. And I did take a day off yesterday. I said I was going to stream daily, but I had to do some stuff behind the scenes, do some other things not regarding Oasis Live itself. So I'm going to make up for today. I'm going to show you some cool new stuff that we're going to be doing here. And I'm just checking my levels for audio. I got some music playing, and I have changed stuff around, so we'll see how it works. It looks like all the levels are good. It's not too loud, but for some reason it seems like it's off. We'll go ahead and fix that. But as you can see here, I got a new level in place. This is the deep sea level. This is another entry level instance you can approach within Oasis Live. As well as being a different level, it's a different theme. We have a lot of underwater animals here, some sharks, some prehistoric Leoplorodon, I think that's what it's called, along with just some other cool things that make it feel like you're the deep sea. Maybe like the Mariana Trench, if any of you have ever seen science videos or YouTube videos on that. If not, check it out. There's some pretty cool stuff. You got a giant squid there as well. But upon the import, we had some issues with the actual scale factor, like I've talked about a lot, and that is due to the fact that in this latest version of Oasis, I went ahead and I resized everything to be proportional to the AI. And before I was using a different control system. On top of that, there are some different AI, like a newer NPC scripts that we're using. And I'm going to be converting everything over to the new system, kind of streamlining it, make sure it aligns with the overall goals, what we're trying to accomplish here in the platform and in the release, so that whoever we hand it off to knows how to just make it happen and make it replicate what we've done here. So just before I start playing this to show you what's going on here, you see we do have some issues with these maps where there's something going on here with normals, or that might just actually be the model itself that is low poly. So I'll try to fix that. If not, I may just have to eventually re-import a new nav plane here. On top of just fixing the environment, we're also going to make Sully, our guy Sully here, who we zoom really in. If you see when we zoom in how small he is compared to everything else, I think he could fit like 10 of them in this chest. So that's obviously not proportioned correctly. The right sizes are right here. So, but we're going to make Sully swim, and he's underwater, and I'm not sure how he's going to breathe. I haven't thought that much. I'm assuming we're going to have him put on some kind of breathing tool that he creates or crafts from materials he finds above water. A little hint on how you're going to get here, maybe. And but we are going to change his animation to where he is swimming, not idling in place. And when he moves around, he swims. So I'll show you some of that stuff too, along with scale factors, along with like setting up the level. If you didn't tune in to my last live streams over the weekend, and last week I was finalizing one of our other levels, and if you're interested in seeing the process of what it takes to put one of these together, I recommend you go check those out. There's about 6 or 7 hours worth of streaming. Now, I don't expect you to watch 7 hours of me talking in my Spotify list, but YouTube's really good at pointing out points of interest, and I don't know necessarily what the algorithm that they use to actually make that happen, but you can actually jump around and see different things I'm doing, some mistakes I made along the way that may help you from not making them yourself, along with also seeing some cool things in the finished product. Or I wouldn't say the finished product, because in this line of work you never really finish. You're always improving what you're creating. But you can see what I accomplished in 3 days in the 7 hours of streaming, what it really took to make that happen. So I'm excited. I'm excited to share all this with you guys, and I hope you're excited too about Oasis Live. And without any more talk and promotional talk on the game itself, let's dive right into this. So the very first thing we want to do is we just want to zoom back, and we really want to get a feel for how big this level is compared to our guy here. Now, if you saw the very first Palm Beach level, he was probably able to walk. Well, you can proportion it because I pasted a lot of this stuff in for scale factor with that, just so we have it, that in place. So this was the far side of the instance level, this chest around the rock. If you saw my very first showcase video, and here there's a lot more area to cover. Now, I'm sure as long as we don't have a lot of any more assets in level, you could probably keep this large and you can walk a long ways away because you're not actually using AR space specifically for the phone, or I should say real space to walk around in the augmented environment. So you could probably have them walk that far. But the thing is like we're trying to make these small and compact. We're trying to make them in real life, maybe like a 50 by 50 square foot level that when we do actually implement some of the headsets, you can move around in the real world. And we know that there's not going to be a lot of spaces in the real world where you have 500 by 500 feet to walk around an environment. That's just not really realistic. Even in a park, you never know what you're going to run into, or if it's somewhere that's off the grid, off the map. And so we want to keep these levels somewhat proportional to what we think people will play using like a HoloLens or a Magic Leap or some other wearable device that we implement soon. So we need to scale this down. So I went ahead and just did a little bit of this tidying up, and there is a lot to do in terms of tidying up. So this video is probably not going to be the most interesting engagement of just making this level special interactive. It's mostly just tidying up what we have and what we need it to be like in order to release it with the rest of the stuff here. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all the old assets where it's in this scale, and if I open this up, you can see, not everything is organized correctly, and a lot of these old things I'll probably delete and replace, and a lot of these items are old and we have to put in new items. So it's mostly going to be some of that. So again, if you just want to check out certain parts, I encourage you to just chime in every little bit, see what I'm up to, and down the road when this gets posted to our channel, you can check it out and skip through what you think is important or is valuable for your time and effort as a developer, gamer, or a creative person yourself here. So I'm just going to take the simplest method, and that is try to scale everything down to fit. And you don't necessarily want to do this because there are things that you don't want to have to scale, and there are things that you probably will screw up if you're scaling. Like for instance, if we were to scale down the text on top of our NPCs here, then we'd have different sized NPC text, and we'd have to go back and bring that back in. So that wouldn't be the best method. You want to pull those out before you're scaling everything down. But because for the most part this is all mesh models, and because we're going to probably pull out the mesh themselves and re-enable them with the new system, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, and we can get away with doing this just to get it proportional. So another thing I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at like mostly the NPCs. When I did have this scaled originally, I tried to scale everything to what it was, and so the sharks and the rocks and the corals, you can see, well, if you just look at the size of this purple coral of the shark, that is probably a 30-foot coral. So those definitely need to be scaled. And even these bags, it's just out of proportion, it's out of whack, and it just has to do with like different scale factors. So I'm just going to go ahead, and I'm not going to worry about the sharks this second because we are going to reuse the sharks here, or the mesh that we have. And I'm not necessarily going to explain their current NPC system. I'm just going to go ahead and use this shark NPC I've set up for us to engage with our Oasis passive script right here that's going to do the work for us. And the script itself is something that just tells us to navigate around the environment. It allows for us to use it as one of the items, so that you can affect the shark and play and get items from him. And then we'll set up some cool items that he'll drop, like maybe a shark tooth, maybe jaws. Obviously we're not going to do anything in terms of edible stuff. I know places in the world people eat sharks, like shark fin soup, but we're not going to implement that into our game because in the US we're against that kind of stuff, or just animal rights, we're against that. So a part of me creating Oasis, if we do actually get some resources or some money off of this, a lot of the money we create is going to go back into donating to places like the marine, the corals, or whatever needs help. And that's a big reason why I create stuff that's fun and engaging that could possibly do well, because I want to actually share with people that need it, not just myself, who obviously am doing this for the right reasons, but I'm also trying to create a product that everybody enjoys. So there's a balance there. And without any more moral values or lessons, let's go ahead and continue doing this. So I'm going to keep on. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I'm still going to go back to my scale right here, and we'll just keep on scaling it down until we feel like it makes sense. Now that's obviously a little small now, so one thing I didn't implement was the old rock, but this rock here would probably give us, if we had the old one in place from the Palm Beach, I should say the Palm Beach one, we could probably scale it pretty well based off of that, and then work everything around where the big objects are. And another thing here, we have a half of a boat. We got to think about the size of Sully, you know, what his actual size is, and how the boat would play a part in terms of that. So that is looking better. This does seem like a realistic size. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, I'm more concerned about the items that we're versus the environment. Obviously, there's big rocks, small rocks, tall rocks, short rocks, and so you can always have different scales in that factor. And even with the map, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the items themselves should align with the rest of the game. And so I do that by using an old NPC, or I shouldn't say one that's already set up, like this raptor here, and then we think proportionally the size of the raptor to Sully what the shark should be. These are great whites here, and that is a giant squid, and I'll have to do some research online real quick and see how big giant squid get, because these are going to be rare monsters that you find along with the I think I'm saying that, Leoplorodons, which we'll find that when the time comes. I'm not going to worry about it this second. We'll have to make sure those are scaled appropriately. Now, if this guy's like 100 feet long, we probably won't make him 100 feet. We'll probably make him like a smaller version. But again, that's just up to when we get to that point there. So I am going to just think real quick about... I almost just want to turn everything off but what we need here. And I'm going to turn on the rock base, because that's what we're using. And again, I'm just cleaning up a little bit, so I'm going to pull stuff out one at a time and see how far we can get today. So this is the nav mesh. I always call the rock base nav mesh, and that's just so I usually put a hashtag to know it's an important thing I'll be using frequently. And I'll pull that up top here. So I also want to try to keep this, usually I try to zero stuff out, right? And so if we zero this out, let's just see what it looks like here. So that's zeroed out. It's obviously higher up there. So I'm thinking if I should move everything up or keep it aligned where Sully is, because Sully's in a good place. We know he's working another level, so I try to align stuff around our character here, and where like this chest is. That's a pretty good place, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It's the little things in life. All right, so yeah, Sully is pretty high up, and I'm gonna stick to the items here because I know those are in the right place. Sully actually might be out of place in this specific one here, and so, and he's actually not even the updated one, to be honest. So you can see he has a little bit of here. All right. So while we're setting these levels, nothing's really a final prefab. Although Sully is a prefab here, we're going to eventually have one prefab that we pull every single level. He is using specific scripts that are going to keep things streamlined, but we don't necessarily need to worry about that in a second. We're just simply building up the levels. And another thing we're going to do is we have our quest givers here. So I'm just going to take those, and we're going to obviously not have a welcome to Oasis script or a quest that is in the first one, but we do want to have a related script to or a related quest due to the underwater thing. So you can't see it now because it's disabled, but there's actually a dino bone, a T-Rex bone that's going to be a quest item. And before I actually enable anything else, the beauty about this is we can keep the crabs here because the crabs are we're going to get rid of this dragonfly. So I'm just going to go into our items right here. It's our item inventory. And we'll just delete the stuff we know is not going to be underwater here. So we know that. We have starfish. We will have fish, but we're going to re-implement those. There's no fruit. The leopard seal itself was something I had, but it's not necessarily in. It's not rigged. Seashells are good. Soul gem can stay. The wood stuff can stay because that will be underwater. Mini palms not. Canvas pouch we can keep, so we'll do that. Earth essence. That's interesting because it is technically the earth down here, but we're gonna put a lot of waters. So we'll keep that for now. Just, we may and remove the barracuda, the avocados, and the coconuts, and let's just say goodbye to that stuff. So now that we have that stuff in place, I'm gonna go ahead and just pull this stuff up and out of the way for now, because when I enable the other stuff, I need to see what this level already has placed before I start putting in this stuff. Another thing we're going to get rid of are our flamingos right here, and pretty much everything but the crabs, because these are all above water. So we have our 2 little crabs here along with the new stuff we're going to create. And this is just a way to keep the project organized as you go. The last thing you want to do is says unknown assets. So I'll just choose 1 crab at a time here, and I'll put him somewhere in the middle. And I'll put this guy somewhere in the middle. And of course they're going to wander around as they want to. So we're also zero out the rotation because sometimes they do get moved based off of that. So that way they just land flat. And we will make sure they're pretty close to the nav mesh when we're in there. So we'll move on to our, turn these off for now. Well, actually, this is another way we can scale it. So that's pretty proportional, and I just eyed that. I didn't realize I had this. I didn't think about using this, but this gives us a good proportion of how big the map frame is. So that's actually a pretty good placement there. So we can use that, and I'll go ahead and just minimize that. Oh, my mouse is acting weird on this trackpad. I don't know if it's my mouse or the trackpad, but it's acting weird. Like, I'm shaking it, moving it around. Come on, buddy. Get your stuff together. I just had to drop it, really heard that. Fortunately, that's not what you should do if you care about your mouse. But this is a magic mouse, so it's going to fix itself. Okay, so we also have this water sphere here, which is an interesting thing. And the water sphere is supposed to give you the underwater effect on the camera. So for now I have that toggled off, but it's meant for when you're looking through the water. It actually looks like it's kind of like a filter effect. And we will parent that to our camera, our AR camera. But for now I'm not going to worry about that. I'm also just going to turn that off, and I'm going to put that it's not a collectible. I guess we'll keep it where it is because it's kind of in its own little thing for now. So before I pull these up, I'm going to go ahead and turn these off for now. And we're going to go start pulling out additional stuff from the scales here. So I want to turn on the map, of course. Or not the map, the ship here. And this was a free model I found somewhere. I don't necessarily want the pirate thing there. I think that's a little bit. I want it to be more of just for Lost Wreck. But I'm also hesitant to pull it in case something else is enabled. So I'm just going to go ahead and toggle stuff on and pull it on the Y-axis here, and just kind of place it at the level it needs to be. And we're also going to take our raptor here, who's not really going to be a raptor soon. He's going to be sharp soon. And we're going to just place him in the middle here. And using our Oasis passive script, we'll update him in a little bit. I could even just say, alright, let's just call this shark. Or we'll say great white shark. I mean, that name is pretty long, which is why I'm hesitant to do say great white. I'll just say like white shark for now. Even though everybody, saying great white, maybe we can just call him a great white. But I do want to make the names very literal, and great white doesn't emphasize what kind of animal or creature it is here. But we'll leave that there for now. That's okay. He's just hanging out. Close that up, and we can go back to our scale. We got our shipwreck, so we'll pull that out. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna rename these as we pull them out, just so we're organizing as we place here. And so this is gonna be this is shipwreck, and it was called a shipwreck, but I'm just cleaning it up a little bit here. And we may pull it in. We'll figure that out once we get everything placed here. And next we're gonna let's find those big rocks first. Those are probably more important. And I'm looking around my microphone here, which is why I'm kind of peeking around at my screen. Where are those rocks? Rocks. Underwater. T-Rex floor. This is the T-Rex bone I was talking about. That's going to be a quest item right there. We'll pull it up just so it's in the sand right there. And we're not going to move him besides the Y there, and then we'll pull him up. So you see where we're going with this. We're just slowly but surely updating the map to be scaled to the factor we need it to be. So instead of calling this T-Rex floor, T-Rex bones. I think T-Rex has a hyphen, right? I don't think it matters. I don't really like the hyphen. So we're going to delete these chests and re-import them, just to have the new setup, but I want to know where they are, so I don't want to necessarily delete them yet. I'm going to cheat a little bit by dropping the new ones on them. Leopleurodon. That's what it's called. So where are these rocks? Okay, so here's a rock. This is our rock pile 1. That's the half of the rocks here. So that actually placed very nicely for us. So we got lucky there in that sense. So I'll bring that up, and again, I'm just going to try to organize. So this is going to be a rock pile. And it looks like it actually has some other stuff in here. It shouldn't. It has this. Oh, never mind. I thought that was enabled with it. Take that back. So we'll just call this big rock pile. Or maybe we should call it the. If I had the navigation up, we could say this is like the western rock, or let's call this the west rock. And then we'll get like another one over here. We'll call that the east rock if we can find that. So another we know is called rock pile. We should be able to find the other one. There it is. Okay, and we will bring that up. And this is going to be the, I think, formation east rock formation. And the only reason why I'm getting pretty specific about naming this is because we may actually reference these in quest and other activities to where you can be like, go towards the east rock formation there. And looks like we have a little bit of a hollow area right here, which you can only see. There's another little thing right here that may be issues. And there's also a lot that's underneath you don't see. So we may have to, if we really want to maximize this, we want to just pull it up as much as possible, and then hide that with something so nobody can see that, which we'll do in a second. I also think this ship should probably be moved over here, so we'll probably do that too. But this quest actually sits in a nice place right there. It sits it could be referring to this dinosaur or something along here that we have to find here. And of course our Tiki guy is no longer going to be around in a second. We'll probably get rid of him, but we'll do that in the end of all this. So what else can we pull up here before we start doing the animals? Maps, underwater plants. So I'm going to start pulling the plants, I think. I think the plants are the next step. Because if we grab all the plants at once, we can scale them all down. Alright, so this is the old nav plane, which I'm not going to keep. Or maybe I will, I'm not sure what it is, to be honest. Oh, that's like boundaries, so I'm going to call this boundaries. I'm not really sure what that is. It could have been, it was probably being used for a different nav system than what we're using now. We actually don't need it. I tried to simplify the navigation, so I'm going to say just old boundaries, and I'm going to have to reorganize all this stuff as we go, so I'll probably keep it down here with the water sphere, and we'll say, again, there's a little hashtag it out, which is just a personal way of me knowing that it's something that is important I got to take care of, and this, so I can search hashtag in the all right here and pull them up if I can't find them. Just personal preference. Oh, the bubbles are fun. This is a particle, and they're so large right now. Look how big those are. That is probably like a mile of bubbles in the sky, which is not feasible. We're wasting a lot of rendering just having those there. So we got to figure out how to scale these suckers down when they actually make sense. So let's go ahead and pull these up. That should be our next thing we do. And let's say water bubbles. Alright. And these are a particle, you can tell because it says particle right there, and there's a particle system involved. And they just use a bubble image. So particle systems are interesting because they take to really get the effect you want, it's not as simple as this. You gotta actually tweak things. Like, you never start a particle system from fresh every time. You can when you're learning, but when you get into using a lot of particles, you don't want to have to use particles start from just like adding one. You want to kind of tweak some that you have already and make them work with what you already have. So this just saves some time, and also the particles can be very difficult when you're getting at, I guess. If you're, if you don't know what to tweak, if you don't know what's going on there. So I'm just playing it to see if we can see the particles. You also see that I have to replace the Oasis Live from our Doom Island level, which is another level that I will show you guys eventually. Okay, so we have a couple of nav meshes. These ones they're on the old nav mesh. We have to re-import that. And again, we're gonna have Sully probably be swimming about 5 feet off the ground, or what's interesting about me saying 5 feet underground? This song's called 6 Underground. It's playing right here, and it was like very ironic that I said that. This is the Sneaker Pimps. If anybody knows, this is like a '90s jam. I mean, you can't hear it with the audio there, but let's turn that off here. It's called Six Underground, which maybe we'll put him 6 Underground just because it's a sign from the song playing. Even though that's talking about, I think, 6 feet underground when you die, so it's not as glorious as being in the deep sea level of Oasis. Okay. Hold your horses there, buddy. Nobody wants your quest just yet. I'm just looking to see if... I'm also noticing there's some issues going on with our sails here. They don't seem to be rendering like we want them to. They are doing something funky, so we may have to change the material on those, which is something we'll do. I'm not even seeing the bubbles here, and I want to be... There's our quest. That actually, the quest sound is something we'll keep. I'm just trying to see if I can see the bubbles. You can kind of... It's hard to see against the green. They're actually easier to see when you key it out in the real world. But they're clearly way too big for us, and that's not going to work. So we'll go ahead and just try to tweak those and play around with them to where they're probably going about 50 feet in the air of the scale of our guy here. So let's go back into our scenes. Right, this is my organization's everything here, and we're gonna go ahead and just figure out how to scale these babies down. Now, unfortunately, particles do not scale like mesh does. You see, I just try to scale in there, and they do not like to scale at all. They just base their system off an independent. They don't get affected by like mesh does there, because they're using values of like how stuff. So I'm just gonna kind of, before I mess with anything, let's figure out what we can do to fix this. So I think emissions rate over time, if we bring this down about 2, makes them slower, but it still doesn't fix the distance they're going, right? They're like pretty large, so over distance, you can change the gravity, duration, start lifetime, start speed, start size is definitely something we want to change, so we'll just change this 1 to 3 here. Okay, that's better. Those are actually more of the size you'd want to see a bubble probably at this. They're still just way too spread out at this point. We can change the max particle, we can... This is why particle systems themselves, there's just people that just like you have fire artists and water artists and all kinds, there's people that just, their only job is to make awesome particle setups. Unfortunately, I don't have one of those guys here, it's just me, so... shape. Okay, this will probably... I'm just gonna see if this changes the, let's see if that changes that. Okay, so we don't want to change that. I'm looking for the, how far it scale, or the distance of it. Okay, rotation, size over lifetime, size over speed, render is not important. That. Careful about what I change. I don't want to change anything that's going to screw up the bubble effect here. Duration, if I just go 2. How far are they going? I don't know if that's really helping us though, huh? It's weird, it actually if anybody decides to come on the live stream and wants to chat to me about how to fix this, by all means, teach me the ways of the particle system. Start lifetime. Okay, so why is this higher than this one? Let's change these. 5 to 7. And this one will be 3 to 5. Okay, so it's still way too big, huh? And let's just see what happens when we crank this up. Is that for something? No, it doesn't seem to do anything there. Alright, so rate over time. If I go like 0.2. Okay, so that's obviously getting rid of them. We don't want that. We want more bubbles. Maybe we want to bring this higher to like a 10 or something, right? Okay, so now we have more bubbles, which is good. Maybe it has something to do with these graphs. I don't want to mess with these graphs in case that's like, I think that's actually a motion the way they work, that they move around. So I don't want to do that, but I want to... Alright. Where'd my bubbles go? Okay. Duration, let's just try this one more time. Yeah, I mean the duration is really just how long they last till they disappear, so that's not the distance they're traveling. It has something to do with their speed, for sure. So let's just stick it down to 1 to 2. It's still way too big. Another thing I want to do is I want to make the emitter be over something so we know where to look. So I'm gonna put it right over this rock, like it's bubbling right behind the rock. And unfortunately, I lose it when I do that. So just zoom into there. Okay, so now we can see really the proportional value of what these bubbles are doing here. They're way too big still. So gravity modifier, make it 20. Does that do anything for us? It doesn't really do much there, so I'll just put it back to whatever it was. I'll just say like -7, like it was. Doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, particles have a little bit of wiggle room in terms of changing it. Right, and let's put these down to 200 because I don't think that actually changed anything. Speed modifier, velocity 0.1. There we go. That's something a little bit more realistic, right? So 0.2, 0.22, 0.2. Okay, so that's actually within an area. Bubbles definitely travel faster than this, though. And I wish they don't. They actually still look kind of like spheres. I feel like they could have been more bubbly at some point, right? So, and I thought for a second there I actually had a bubble effect. Let me see if I just type that in there. What if I do this? Yeah, those are more bubbly, right? Yeah, I don't know why I thought I had those in place. So, those are monstrous bubbles. They may be a little bit too, you can see that they fade in and out, which is part of the particle system. It takes care of all the transparencies and stuff, so like, but what I don't like about this is that all the bubbles are the same direction, so we have to randomize kind of the shape of when they start, so they don't look like they're just a million of the same thing over and over, which is what it is, essentially. Alright, so we blobby water bubbles, and this is whoever created this originally named it. So let's go select the material here, and let's duplicate that, and let's say deep sea water bubbles. And I've talked about like this whole cap thing I do sometimes. I guess like it just allows me to differentiate what I've done or what I'm doing compared to somebody else here. Okay, so I have materials there. Oh, but I need to first find that what I just created. So deep sea water bubble, and we're going to drop that in our materials right here. And we're just going to go our materials, and there they are. And this, of course, this all needs organization, and I'm slowly pulling stuff into the right places. And I've made a number of different applications using the Oasis core before this, so it's a work in progress here. But once we get organized, it'll be fine. Let's go ahead and play that and see if the bubbles are more apparent with the green. One thing that's bugging me is the nav mesh isn't working correctly, and this is bugging me too. So we're gonna fix some of the stuff so every time we play it, we don't have to look at that. So before I see that real quick, I'm gonna change gears just for a second here. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go to our scene here, which, where is it? Right here. I'll go nav mesh, and I'll go nav, and you can see that's why they're navigating way up here with the old map, and that's, we don't need that. So we'll just bake a new one here, and it should fix it for us. There you go. Now we have some nav mesh in the right area, and we can even bring it way down so it doesn't get these rocks here. I think that'll fix that. See what happens when I bring it really low. We're just looking for the floor here. Okay, good. So that actually worked nicely for us. The beauty about having everything set up already is that the settings you need are there. So these rocks are static. And so now, if I go ahead, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn off our game canvas right here, just so we don't have to see this stuff for now. Or maybe I'll keep on. I'll just turn off the info, which is wrong, and I will go ahead and just focus on the gameplay here. Sorry, no, cracking your fingers isn't good. The bubbles are so big, but let's at least see if we can see them now. What do you say, buddy? See the bubbles? I also want to figure out that the drums, which are going to be obnoxious every time we play it. So I still really see them and the thing. There, you can kind of see them. Whoa, what's going on there? Something's happening. See that? Something has happened. That was interesting. Sully has a rigid body on him, so if he gets hit by something with a rigid body, he'll have to go flying. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just, for the sake of my sanity here, which I'm about to lose, is where are these quest items, and I know I originally said I was gonna put this in the middle, but we're gonna get this guy out of the way so he goes drums out. He only drums when you're near him over here, and that way we can figure that out later. We're not gonna obviously use a tiki. We're gonna use something else to replace it, but we'll also use a different sound effect than the tiki. But we have all the systems in place, which is good. All right, and then this one's not a problem. Quest 3 is our chest here, so we'll go ahead and just do that, and then we will. I like to clean up when I do this here. Not sure which one's the front. I forget. It's hard to see sometimes. So we'll just keep that guy over there, and we may move him. We probably also will put a lot of plants and stuff to fill up this level like you see on the other ones there that I've shown you. But just get everything into place here. We'll go ahead and move this over for now, our dinosaur, although we wouldn't want to have two crests too close to each other, and we'll have to scale up the click. So if you click on his head, because right now it only shows this area, right? So we want to fix that by making it somewhat of the shape of this guy without it being too big. And you can use different colliders. You can use a mesh collider instead of a box collider, but mesh colliders are more expensive in terms of memory and all that stuff. So usually people just use box colliders. They're cheap. There's only 6 sides to count to that shape, versus a mesh collider on that's going to be a lot of extra stuff you don't want to look at, or you don't want to calculate in your final thing. And just for the sake of being here, let's just turn this and tuck it over here a little bit. And okay, so it's not too shabby here. We got what we need, and looks good. And just taking a break from the headphones for a second. So maybe we'll also just take Sully in our camera, and we will bring it over here. We'll bring our camera over here, and we will. You can hear the airplane flying overhead. Okay, so looks like we have this a little bit better. And our shark, we will eventually zero out to a place, but I'll just put him over here. Or I should say our shark, our raptor, right shark. That's not the right mesh model. Okay, so I also have a different deep sea audio, which I know is an older version of this that I'll have to I forget which one it is. I'll have to find the name of it. Okay, and he's also doing a weird pivot, which we'll have to fix. But in terms of the bubbles, they're there. They're still kind of big though, aren't they? So to fix that, we'll just go ahead and continue working on them. I feel like it's hard to remember every single thing you place when you make a game like this. It's like so many things, and every level has them differently, so I always forget where I place stuff. Like these water bubbles, I forgot they were in the non-collectibles. So let's just start size right there. Let's say 0.2, 0.2 to 0.4. Okay, so they're smaller now, and they're actually I still think those are too big though, compared to like, they're like the size of his head now, so the bubbles just, I guess, interesting stuff. And they're still going, like, we're wasting a lot of energy, or nobody's going to be looking way up here, so we got to figure out how to condense them. I think, what did we do to fix that earlier? It was here we tweaked. Oh, also we're going to change it to our deep sea bubbles instead, and then that way we can know to update the right one, and then put it in place. Cool. Hey, don't touch my green screen. No, kitty. I know you have sharp nails, they'll scratch that. It looks like she's the destroyer, my cat. I love her to death, but she's this destroyer of nice things. Whenever I wash something, like one of my favorite shirts, and fold it, she'll just go lay on it and dig her nails in it. I guess she likes the smell of the flowers or fresh linen. I don't blame you, kitty, so do I. Okay, so just gonna fiddle around with this. Maybe I'll bring it up here because the way it's traveling, it just wants to travel up and away that way. I said no. Uncle. Okay. That was the velocity, right? There's something that crunched it down. What was it? Speed modifier? Is that it? Yeah, it was this. That's what it was. 0.1. And realistically, that's kind of makes sense because if this was scaled at 1/10, this is 1/10 of 1, so it makes sense why it would be 1/10 of the size, right? And this traveling, because this is proportionally probably 1/10 of what it was. So we got some bubbles now, floating around. If we pause, we can look, check them out. Let me figure out what the shortcut is to get to the hand. In 3D space, still really big, but they do look cool. They do look cool in the sense that if you're playing the game and you're in AR and there's bubbles floating around in AR space, I think that'd be pretty radical. It'd be radical, my dudes. Okay. I don't need this anymore. That's old. Sully himself this is not the updated Sully. This is the wrong Sully here. He's an old Sully. He's the older, not as wise Sully. Okay. So I'm guessing maybe since they're traveling so far that way, it would make sense to have them be back here, right? I mean, I kind of want them to be all over, so maybe just having it here in the middle. And you can kind of get bubbles everywhere. And then at this point, now we just have to, because it's moving in that direction, I want to tuck it over here behind his chest, kind of, just so it passes by our player. I also want to scale out the width of it. So I always get confused by the size. If it's the size of the bubble, I think it's the emission. It's the emission or shape that we have to tweak here. So the radius might be it. Right? Yeah, that's it. There we go. Okay, so now we have a bigger radius, and the radius is over here. Just watching my cat. She's been sniffing my green screen. Every time I talk, she thinks I'm talking to her, so I may have to lock her up. Lock that kitty up. Let's make this even 500. Ooh, 5,000. Now, I think it's actually scaling up more. I mean, it's sometimes it's hard to tell. So we'll put that right in the middle. And we definitely want to up the bubble count, don't we? I mean, I'm just saying, let's see what 500 does. What does 5,000 do? Yeah, I don't know, it doesn't seem to affect it like I thought it would, though. They look like the same amount, so... Simulation speed. We won't mess with that, because they're moving pretty good right now. I don't know why they're not adding more when I admit them. Collision we don't really need, but we'll just keep that on. Rotation. Are they rotating? Okay, so they are rotating too, which is good. Size, color, and I just want to add more bubbles. thought for sure it would be a particle amount. Usually that's what it is. So I'm not sure why it doesn't seem like it's adding more. Like if I just get really extreme, maybe I have to pause it and start it again. 10 million bubbles. Does it make it more? No, it's not. So that's interesting. Might as well just keep on the default 200. Oh, auto random speed. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Emitter velocity, rigid. Shape. Scale 0.2 world. Start rotation. Like this. 50, 300 doesn't do anything. Yeah, I'm not. I gotta look into that. Why it's not creating more. I mean, obviously, the quick fix is that we can just go duplicate this, right? And then we have, and we can probably rotate this. No, we can't rotate. Never mind, it's a particle. Take that back. But we could move it over, and then now we got twice as much bubbles. But I kind of want to keep it in one particle system. I'm gonna have to lock my cat up. She's being bratty, so let me just sneak on out right here. I have to push it back for a second. You're a bad kitty. Bad kitty. Yellow kitty. You're a bad kitty. Okay, we are back. He's just curious. He likes following me around everywhere. I've had that cat, got her with an ex-girlfriend, and she's really only known a few people. She was a kitten, she had like her mom cat, we adopted her, and then obviously I broke up with whoever I was with at the time, and she's really known me her whole life, so she's gets excited when she sees me, and my thing's getting blurry again. And you know, if I'm not around and I live by myself, she gets pretty lonely, you know. So you gotta. I was thinking about getting her friend, not another cat, probably might adopt a dog soon. I just want to make sure I have everything squared away in life, like work and life, and everything's good before I take on any more responsibility. And for the puppy, like a good, you know, a dog friend that can hang out with her. Sometimes, like when I'm have to go run errands and stuff for a little bit, you know, would be good for her. I think she'd like it. Okay, so we have these. Let's go ahead and play this and just see. I want to turn that audio off. The audio, I keep on forgetting to toggle it off. So I'm going to do that next time after this ends. And we can also, to change up these two particle systems, which they randomize independently, we can change the values on them, right? Oh, there's an underwater raptor. We're having some, you can see it's getting the playback here. The particles are probably eating up some serious space, so we have to consider turning them off. And I do see them, and I really would like to know what they're like keyed out, and I'd like to know what they're like in like an AR headset, because the green. I mean, we could put a skybox in here. I could drop one. I could disable the AR, but for the sake of just having it running, I don't really want to mess with it, and it's not really doesn't really matter if you can see it or not. It just matters what it looks like in the final product. So, but there are bubbles, and they are moving around, and I think those give it a cool little effect. I think they're going to be cool in 3D space when you, and so we're just going to leave them for now. But I'm probably going to go ahead and just delete a set just for performance sake, and then maybe we can figure out how to add in more later, depending on after we optimize this stuff. I haven't really done any performance testing on all these levels. I did it on the first level, the Palm Beach level, because that was something. What did I just delete? I want to do that. I want to delete this one. That was something that I knew I was going to be sharing soon and having people download it just to showcase what we're doing here. So let's also take our shipwreck and let's just move it while we have a chance over here, so that we fill out the cylindrical map of the seafloor here. Okay, and we want it to be somewhat buried in the sand, right? So we'll just, and I'll push it back as far as we can really go, because you're not going to be able to go behind it. You're going to be blocked by, and you're never going to really see that, which is not a big deal here. So I do want to figure out why our sail though isn't working, huh? Maybe if we change the shader type to something else. No, it doesn't really affect it like I would hope it affects it. Alright, don't want to make that. We want to keep it on vertex lit, or vertex lit is what you're supposed to use as the most optimal shader, but I think these obviously look better. It's just taking up more space, so we'll have to figure out if we can even keep that. And you know, let's just take a look at this real quick. Look at this ship right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and reveal this and just open it in Photoshop and see if we can check out what's going on here. Open with. So I'll probably do 2 streams tonight, since I didn't do one yesterday like I promised I'd be doing daily ones for anybody interested in what we're doing here. So it's been about an hour, so I'm gonna go ahead and take a quick break, and when we come back we'll open up the Photoshop right here, and we'll check out this thing, and we'll continue working on our deep sea level here. This is a level in Oasis Live. This is deep sea version 1.0, like they all are going to be. And real quick, I'm not signed into Photoshop. Yeah, I'm gonna take a break because Photoshop is acting like I don't have license privileges. I've been licensed in that for days, son. Okay, so I will be back. This is Nate Miller from DigiFX. Thank you for joining me.